Okay, attendance. So we're gonna start taking attendance today, and it's gonna be a normal thing from now on. Only I just didn't do it the last weeks because usually we have a lot of people adding and dropping the first 2 weeks. So if you could please go to Blackboard for me, go to Blackboard, click on 303, and if you click on quickly attendance. How many of you guys use this, by the way? Oh yeah, some of you use it. All right, so you already know what that means. And when you go there, you're gonna see like maybe you might not see it yet. Let me go and turn this on. You're gonna see like a place to type in some code. This is how you get attendance credit. There you go, 6705. I'll go ahead and also put it up on the board. I'll put it over here too. Okay, so let's get into habit of when you come to class, you have 15 minutes, which is a really long time, to put your code in, and that's how you get attendance credit. So here's the thing though, randomly, I'm not going to do attendance this way. Randomly, I'm going to do traditional roll call. It's going to be very random. You don't know what's going to happen. The reason for that is because, so let me tell you something. Attendance is worth 5% of your grade. It becomes very minimal at the end of your grade. But students tend to have this panic attack thinking like 5% is going to really hurt them. So what happens, especially towards the end of the semester, I realize, is that students send their friends the code, and that's how you check in. You try to lie about attendance, and then I catch you, and I report you to SJAX, and it's not fun, right? So for just 5% of your grade, right? So let's not do that, guys. It's only 5%. The only reason I even give credit for attendance is it just gives you a slight incentive to come to class. And I also get it. You have other things going on. You might have interviews. You might have vacation plans. I don't know, or I don't know. You might have other things going on. I understand. So because of that, I'll give you 3 free absences, no questions asked. So if you get sick, or if you have to go on an interview, or you have to go visit your grandma that day, or whatever it is, you get 3 for free. At the end of the semester, they'll get dropped, so they don't even affect you. Again, small incentive for you to come to class. Also, part of this attendance grade, participation grade, is Piazza. If you participate on Piazza, it'll be extra credit towards this grade. Right? So it doesn't hurt you. If you never ask anything on Piazza or respond on Piazza, it's okay. It's not gonna hurt you. But if you do, it can only help you. So that's what this grade is all about. Again, it's not a big part of your grade. It's just more of an incentive to make you to come to class. And the reason I make you come to class is because it is really helpful to just come to class and learn. Even if you do end up watching the recording again later, right? The more when it comes to coding, the more you do it, the better, the more practice you get, the better you become. So I just USC agrees. That's why for USC undergrad students, we don't do online courses or anything, because coming, being physically here, being with me, asking questions real time, asking TAs for help, there's value to that. So that's why I'm doing a little incentive for attendance. So get used to this. Usually in the first 15 minutes or so, there's gonna be some kind of attendance thing you gotta do, whether it's the code or whether I'm calling your name or something. So do try to come before the 15 minutes is over. I mean, once 15 minutes has passed, it's kind of hard to catch up in class anyway. So, try to get here on time. 2 p.m. isn't that early, right? So you guys can wake up for 2 p.m. class, right? So, all right then, let's get started. So today we're going to do some more interesting things. This week, we had the holiday, so we don't have a, let's open up the website here. There's no lab this week because we don't have class on Monday, so there's not much to do a lab on. But we do have one assignment. And this is going to be your final HTML and CSS assignment, meaning today's lecture is our final CSS, HTML type of lecture. Starting next week, we're going to talk about JavaScript. So we're still in the front end, right? We're still talking about client side. We're still talking about browsers, but we're going to be talking about JavaScript next Monday. We're going to talk JavaScript about for another 4 lectures or so. And then we'll move on, do our midterm and all that stuff. But today's our last one. So our last assignment on HTML CSS, you will be creating another mini website, something like this. You're going to use something called Bootstrap to create this. How many of you have at least heard of Bootstrap before? I'm sure many of you have. Yeah, Bootstrap is very even when I was learning stuff, Bootstrap was around. So yeah, Bootstrap is very popular, I would say. So we're going to do Bootstrap. So you're going to create a website using Bootstrap. And as you can see, this is a completely fake website. There's no such thing as, I don't think there's such thing as cupcakes. You're going to pretend you're making a website for your fake company, right? Pick whatever company you want it to be. It could be a product company, it could be a service company, whatever you want. Use your imagination, go crazy. You're going to pick some pictures. There's a great website called unsplash.com that has a lot of really nice pictures for you to use for free. So you could check that out and use pictures there. And then you're going to create a nav bar like this. And then you're also going to create a second page. So you only need 2 pages. When I click on team, it's going to show you a team page, and it's going to show you your team members or your wannabe team members, or people that you've always dreamt to work with. Go ahead and put them there. And, put a photo in, do like a little, like a position, a fake position, of course, some text, and these are buttons, but they don't, if I click it, they don't actually go anywhere. They're just buttons. All right, so on and so forth. And then there's an about here, but it doesn't have to actually go anywhere. Your assignment, you only need to do 2 pages, 2 key pages like this. Okay, and of course it has to be responsive because we talked about that, right? So when I do mobile, for example, it looks like this, and actually even my bar does this. Ooh, interesting, right? And then as it grows, it changes. Right, same thing with home. Okay, so as it gets smaller, it slightly changes your layout and all this stuff, the usual stuff you've done already. However, again, we're going to be using Bootstrap to do this, and you're going to see how quickly you can build a website like this using Bootstrap. So in your assignment 2, your product assignment, you are creating everything from scratch, right? You're doing like all your divs, you're doing floats and calculating percentages and everything. But with Bootstrap, you're going to see how quickly it is to whip up something like this, right? For those of you, there's a couple of you that just walked in late. We're taking attendance today. Go to Blackboard, click on Tools. You're going to be able to enter in this 4-digit code for your attendance. All right, kind of fun, right? So we're going to talk Bootstrap, and we're also going to talk something about Flexbox, and that will be the end of our HTML CSS lecture. All right, so today's lecture is meant to be more of like some of the new things in CSS and HTML. So far we've done we learned the very foundations of HTML and CSS. We learned about selectors, we learned about elements, we learned about a lot of very basics. However, as technology changes inevitably, even in HTML, CSS, things have changed a lot. And because software developers are always about how do I make things better, how can I improve things, new things come out all the time. New libraries come out, new languages come out, even new versions come out. So we're going to talk to 2 main new-ish things that are currently being used a lot in real life or in industry is Flexbox and Bootstrap. So I've seen that most of you have heard of Bootstrap already. How many have at least heard about Flexbox before? Okay, not as many, but a few of you. Okay, good. So Flexbox is it's slightly different from Bootstrap. I'll show you the differences here, but Flexbox is just another development in CSS that allows us to do things better and faster, because we always like better and faster, right? And then we'll talk about Bootstrap, which is actually a framework, okay, or we also call them libraries. We'll talk about the difference between a framework and a library later, but we'll talk about Bootstrap next. And we'll do a little demo on that, and then you can create your own glorious cupcake kind of website. Don't steal my idea, guys, okay? This is my website. This is my company. Make your own company, all right? Okay. All right, let's get started then. So let's look at Flexbox before anything. If you click on today's lecture notes, you'll see lecture 5, blah, blah, blah. Go ahead and, under resources, I have 2 links for you. Go ahead and click on this first one. It's called csstricks.com. And this is a really, really like great cheat sheet, kind of a great reference to Flexbox. All right, Flexbox again is relatively a new thing. It wasn't supported by a lot of browsers for a while, but let me show you another website while you're on that website. There's a website called caniuse.com, very useful when you need to look up real quick, oh hey, is this like a feature that's new, or can I use this? So if I talk in Flexbox, for example, you can see, oh hey, these are the browsers that support Flexbox. It looks like, oh, IE11 has some partial support, but it looks like by now all the modern browsers pretty much have Flexbox enabled, so we're going to try and use Flexbox today. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this guide as we're learning Flexbox. All right, and let's open up a new subline file. I have a lot of stuff here. Let me go ahead and close that one. Let's create a new brand new file. All right, we're going to create. We're going to create a few things in here. First things first is Flexbox starter code. Let's go ahead and click on that code pen link. And in this one, you're going to see that the HTML panel and the CSS panel are both filled up. First, grab just the HTML panel for now. Go ahead and copy that, and we're going to dump this in here. Okay, paste that in there. Make sure you paste all that in here. Let's save this file. Oh, wait, before I do that, let me make sure before I even do anything, let's go back to my desktop. Let's go to my ITP 303 folder. In my ITP 303 folder, I've been creating folder for every lecture. I'm going to create another folder called lecture 5. This is going to be Flexbox and then also Bootstrap, so I'm just going to put both in there. All right, cool. I have a new folder. Okay, and that folder is where I'm going to start saving all my files. Okay, I'm going to go and save this file. I'm going to call this one Flexbox. Okay, .html. Use HTML. Awesome. Okay, and notice how right now I'm using an external style sheet. I'm linking this flexbox.css in here. Right, that's on purpose. I want to use an external style sheet for this one. So I'm going to create another new file. So I have 2 files now. And in the second file, so I have 2 files. Flexbox.html has all my HTML. Right. I'm going to create another file. I'm going to add all my CSS in here. So select all. Okay, copy. Oh no. Copy. All right, and then I'm going to paste all that in here. Okay, and then now I'm going to save this one as well as flexbox.css. All right, so you have a external file and then you have the HTML. Okay, two separate files. Okay, and as you can see, there's some CSS already in here, but ultimately, let's look at the HTML real quick. Ultimately, this HTML is pretty straightforward. You have a container, and in that container, I have 5 more divs. And notice they're very simple divs. They just have, like, they're just called box 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're very simple looking, and it's gonna look. If I go ahead and open this in my browser, it's gonna look something like this. Okay, very, again, nothing crazy. It's just a bunch of boxes. Okay, you know what though? While we're here, let's go ahead and create the other. We have one more starter file here. Create one more file. Oh my, a lot of files today. We're creating 3 files. Okay, one more file. Let's click on this Coachella one. All right. Okay, this is gonna look familiar to you. It's our it's the one we did last week or so. Last week. I forget exactly. Previous one. Go ahead and copy all that, or select all that. Select all. Command A, Control A. Copy all that, and then let's. Oh, we're in the basement. That's why. Okay. I'm like, why is there people on the roof? But I realized, yeah, we're in the basement. All right. So, yeah, go ahead and click all that. Go ahead and save all this. This is going to be call this one Coachella.html. And notice right now this one also has an external style sheet, but it's pointing to a URL. So you can do this with external style sheets. By the way, you can. If you upload it on a different server and you want to use that one, you totally can. This is actually on my TP Web Dev server right now, so that's why I don't have any other CSS in here. But if I open this in my browser, I get my Coachella stuff still is there. Okay, so we created 3 files. I hope you're still with me. Flexbox.html, Flexbox.css, and then Coachella.html. Before I jump into Flexbox, let's talk about why the heck would I even need to learn Flexbox, okay? Flexbox is a new development in CSS, okay? Flexbox is not a library or a framework. Bootstrap, on the other hand, is a library or it's a framework, and whatever, people call it different things, but Flexbox is a new thing in CSS, within CSS, native to CSS, meaning like I'm going to be typing in new properties here. Just like we did position and stuff last week, we're going to be doing something called like flex and stuff in here. All right, so Flexbox is a part of CSS. It's built natively into CSS, and what it allows us to do is it allows us to create these columns and boxes a lot more easier. So if you recall from Coachella days, we created like these 3 divs and we'd put them next to each other. And even in your assignment, right, you have to create related products and you have to do floats and all these wacky things. And then like you forgot to clear something and then bad things happen, right? So it was a bit of a pain, to be honest, to create these columns next to each other. However, when you're creating a web page, you end up creating a lot of columns and a lot of rows and a lot of like stuff like this. This is a very common thing you see on a lot of websites. So it became a pain, so somebody said, you know what, we really got to figure out a better way to create rows and columns. Actually, before Flexbox was a thing, Bootstrap did a really good job doing that, and we'll see why in a little bit later today. And eventually, Flexbox was like, oh, here we have, there's a group of people that actually came up with something called Flexbox, and it's now natively supported across all browsers. It is a relatively new thing. A lot of websites still don't use Flexbox. You might work in a company and they might have no idea how to use Flexbox. It's totally possible. So it's your opportunity to introduce it to them, right? But anyway, so Flexbox is still relatively new, but it's very powerful. We're going to see that in that a bit. So Flexbox is really good at creating boxes like this. Instead of doing floats, we're going to use Flexbox to create columns and such like this. Let's open up that flexbox.html. If you open in browser, it's a bunch of boxes. There are 5 pretty looking boxes. Let me go ahead and put this here, put that there. Right, there's just 5 divs. Okay, they're all just labeled that. And notice divs doing its normal thing. It's stacking from top to bottom. And notice how right now I gave you a lot of just code just to start off with. Each box has a different color. That's why I have all these there. Okay, these are all different colors. And then notice that in my container also has a border. It's like a blue border right now because I gave it a border. All right, and this is like the parent. See how in my container I have all these boxes. Okay, so that's all I have. In my container I have a bunch of boxes. Okay, and then each individual box. Oh, why is that indentation on? Each individual box has like a color white, right, and then like a font size. Just again, just giving some general styles to work with. Okay, awesome. So divs by nature, again, they like to stack top to bottom. However, in a lot of cases, we don't want them to stack from top to bottom. We want them to stack side to side, and that's where we have to do floats, right? Normally, we would have to do like, oh, my box, right? Like, let me go ahead and like, oh, my box, I gotta like, oh, I want them to float, like, oh, I gotta make them flow. I gotta make them like, with 200 pixels or something. Like that's how we would achieve like this side-to-side thing, but then we already see weird things happening. Like my blue stuff is here, we would have to clear, right? So this is like, I don't need this right now. I'm gonna comment this out for now. Okay, like normally this is how we would let me do view word wrap here. Okay, all right, normally this is how we would do side by side. However, we're tired of that method. Again, new things came out. We're going to use something called Flexbox instead. Okay, so when you're working with Flexbox, at minimum, you have to have a structure like this. You need to have some kind of containing div, some kind of div that contains things, and inside that div, you have all the div or other divs that you want to arrange into a nice row. Right? Okay, so and then we also opened this article here that has my complete guide to Flexbox. So same idea. We have a container, right? And then the container has a bunch of little children. Okay, all right. Okay, then to create a Flexbox, it's as simple as doing something like this. In the parent, okay, we're gonna do display flex. Save, refresh, boom, magic. Everything is now side to side. I don't have to do float anything. Everything just became things. Wow, awesome. So the moment I add display flex, again, this is a normal CSS you've seen. Like we're not doing anything crazy here. We just have different values. What that's doing is it's saying, hey, all these boxes are inside my container, right? All my boxes, now they became something called flex items. They're all like little items inside my giant flex box. They're little items. Okay, now they have, they're all gonna go side to side by default. How awesome is that? And notice some things here. Notice how the width of each of the boxes, these divs, they're like as wide as the box name. So if I said like box 50, 50 or something, notice how the red one is a little wider now, right? So it's listening to the content inside it. What about the height, right? What about the height? My container right now, I don't have a height, but let's say I set my height to my container just so we can kind of see what's going on here. So if I did container, like I don't know, like 500 pixels, kind of pick a number here. If I refresh, whoa, notice how my box just tries to fill up the height of my container. Okay, so these are just things that, default properties. We're just learning about default properties here. So if I did like even 50 pixels or something, it'll become small. But now there's some problems, but you know what I mean? Like now you can do whatever. It's gonna stretch all the way. All right, I'm gonna start at 500. Okay, just kind of good to know. All right. If for whatever reason, let's say I kind of, so by default Flexbox they all go across. However, let's say I still want it vertically from top to bottom. I can actually still do this. There's something called flex direction. And if I do column, okay, I can still do columns again. Like I can still stack from top to bottom again. All right, and I could actually do so if row is default, I could even do row reverse. Oh, all right, I could even do column reverse. Quite a few different options there. There's in this article I showed you. So there you go, flex direction, right? Flex direction. It shows you different things here. Flex direction is not only does it determine all that. Another thing that flex direction is doing is something in Flexbox. There's a terminology called main axis. Okay, it determines the main axis. When I do flex direction row, for example, the main axis means all the boxes are going from left to right. So I established like kind of like a horizontal line here. It's going from left to right. That's the main axis. If I do column, on the other hand, I flip the main axis to go from top to bottom. Right, just keep that in mind as we're kind of doing this. Okay, I'm gonna go back to row. Right. Let's write that down. Flex direction defines the main axis. Okay. In this case, it is left to right. Okay. We'll come back to what the heck main axis, why we care about main axis. All right. Okay. All right. What about like widths and stuff? So my box, with my boxes, I can still give like a width here. So if I said like width 100 pixels or something, it's gonna be 100 pixels. It's still listening to my width. Okay. So we have 100 pixels. But let's do something interesting. What if I have like a really big width, like 500? All right, 500. Boom. Whoa, interesting. If you recall, when we're normally working with floats, when I do width 500, these boxes just they would wrap around to the next line, right? But however, with Flexbox, they're trying to be smart here a little bit. They're trying to intelligently take care of responsive stuff for you here. They're saying, oh, if my width is too like big and it can't fit in my one row, it's gonna just proportionally kind of even them out. So if I go, notice how the bigger I go, it's just gonna keep stretching it out, and then the smaller I go, it's just gonna, yeah, it just takes care of it for you. It's kind of intelligently, calculating things for you here. So this width is really big. Let's go back to like 300. Get 300. So if I did width 300 here, it's too small, right? It's gonna eventually just say, you know what, width 300. Oh, it's still too much. Maybe like 200. Yeah, there you go. Now eventually, if 200 is gonna it's just gonna stop there if it's small enough. Right? So just intelligently calculates things for you. Let's go back to 500 though. However, there are cases. What if you don't want them to be in one row? You do want to do like a wrap, just like how floats do it, right? I mean, you might want to do that. There's a way to fix that as well. That's our next one. We did flex. There's something called flex wrap. I really like this article because it shows you very visually. So there's something else here, like called flex wrap. Let's do flex wrap. Flex wrap. By default, it's no wrap because there's no wrap. But if I wanted to wrap, I just do wrap, and then now I get a nice little wrap here. Okay, let's maybe do like 300. All right. Okay, and then as I get bigger and bigger, right? This is now the normal. This is a normal like float behavior, right? When it fits, it's gonna try to squish itself in, right? If you wanted that behavior, it's still available. Okay, I'm gonna just go back to my no wrap though, because I like this right now. Flexbox is really good for like one row. So when you just want one row of something, just do it on that one row. It's really good for one row. It's in my opinion, with Flexboxes, I rarely do this. Like I rarely do wrap. Okay, because if I was gonna do wrap, I would just use my normal divs. I don't really need to. So I usually keep it no wrap because I'm using it with one row of stuff. Okay, but I do want to show you that is an option there. 3. Okay. Oh, yes, if you're wondering, percentages still do work here. So if I did like with 33% or something, or in this case, so I still have like wrap on, like it'll still do 33% and right, like it'll still do its best as possible if you needed to do some kind of width. Yeah. Oh. Oh, you can also do, by the way, you can still do like margins, right? Let's say I want to do like a margin left or something. You can still do margins, or maybe margin right, but you do want to, when you're working with wrap stuff, you just want to be careful because when you're working with widths and margins and you're doing wrap, you still want to be careful because each spacing will cause like a break. That's why it goes to the next line. Yes. So you can have wrap on or just adjust it? Yeah.
It should stay as columns if our flex directions is row. I mean, it should be rows.
Yeah. The default. So if I didn't have this, the default is row. Yeah. Let me write that down. Yeah. Flex direction default is row. Okay. But I just have up there just because. Yeah, exactly. If I had no wrap on, it'll just calculate it automatically. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. I don't have to do a lot of math here anymore. Okay. Okay, awesome. All right, those are some little neat things here and there. So, now that you kind of know a little bit, you can imagine how crazy you can go with Flexboxes. However, what people really like about Flexbox is this stuff here, guys. Centering. Don't you guys all hate centering? Like, I think I get the most common question I get is, how do I center? My margin left auto thingy isn't working. How do I center? Just this justified content makes centering super easy. You do it with, it's amazing how easy it is. It almost makes me mad because I spent so much time perfecting how to center things, and now they just came up with such an easy way to center things. Anyway, cool. So let's talk about centering. I'm gonna just because I want to center, I want a smaller width right now. I just want like width. I'm gonna comment some stuff out, and let's do like a small, like width 100. Okay, let's do width 100. Okay, just so I can show you the centering. So let's say I have 5 boxes, but I want to center all these 5 boxes. I want them to be in the center. Right, normally I gotta like create a div, I gotta do margin left auto, blah blah blah. But with Flexbox, it's as simple as my container, right? My container. Okay, I'm gonna use justify content, and I'm gonna do center, and now boom, everything is centered. And no matter what, and again, this is by the way, I haven't really touched box. Everything is the parent is controlling all of this. Okay, the container is controlling all of this. So as soon as I put justify content center, everything is centered, like no matter what size I do. This is, I mean, of course, if it's too small, then it's just going to squish into one, right? Look how amazing that is. It's very flexible. That's where the term Flexbox comes in. It's very flexible box. Oh, okay. I do want to warn you though, justify content. Let me go ahead and write a little bit comment here. What it does is it defines alignment along the main axis. Okay, currently it is left to right, right? It's left to right. So right now it looks like, oh, it's easy to say, hey, justify content. It's just horizontal centering, right? But not always. Just want to clarify. If my flex direction, remember my flex direction defines the main axis. If I said it was column, look what happens. Whoa, it's actually now vertically centered. Right? What? Okay. Let me try to say that one more time. So when I do flex direction row, everything is going from left to right. That's why justify content, when I do center, it's going to center things left to right. Right? However, if I change my direction, if I do column, if I said column, and I refresh, boom. Oh, what happened? It's centering, again, my main axis is up top and bottom now, so it's centering vertically. Whoa, it's a little wonky. Okay, I'm just telling you this because this is like a common debug question. People go like, oh, I did justify content centered, but it's not like horizontally centering, it's vertically centering. It's probably because of your column. Yes?
You want to place something like straight in the center? Like, how do you center it
vertically? Yeah, I'm getting there. Great question. Yeah, what if I want to do it, right? What if we got horizontal centering? What about vertical centering, right? Great question. Now let's talk about the other side, right? Defines alignment along what we call the opposite of main axis is opposite of main axis. We call it the cross axis. To do the other side, we do something called align items. Or align items. Okay. Totally. Align dash items. Okay, again, this reference is really great. This guide is really great. Align items. There's all these different ones we can do here. Wait, before I do align items, sorry guys, I just have to show you just more. Justify content doesn't only have center. It has really cool stuff like this too, like space between, space around. So if I did like space between, for example, okay, I have to show you this because this is like the coolest thing ever. It just automatically calculates for you, and no matter what size I go, you know what I mean? Like it just knows how to space my things. And I can do stuff like, there's a couple other ones. Yes?
Can you specify how much space you want? Or
it's a little set because it's just going to calculate for you and even out. If you want to set specifically, you're going to have to use margins. Yeah. But a lot of times, like you don't, so there's that as well as space evenly. How does that look? Okay, space evenly, right? This is nice as well, right? So there's a lot of different ways you can cover your stuff.
what's the difference between
Yeah, between just means like so you're gonna have the first and last be at the very edge, and then some space in between. They're gonna be even. Space evenly, it sounds like all the spaces in between are gonna be even, and space around looks like all the space just around is gonna be similar. So there's slight differences. Yeah, just play around with it. All right, cool. Now let's go to the other, like, okay, what about vertically, the other axis? Okay, this is where align items comes in handy. So so if I did align item center, for example, it's going to boop center vertically now as well. Very awesome. So right now my height is at 500 pixels. If my height was like 300 pixels, oh, right, it's just gonna know. It just knows. It's amazing. Like 900. Right, 500. Okay. Yeah, and there's more here. You can do like, you could even do like flex end if you want to like make it go to the bottom for some reason. There are cases, actually, I've seen this a lot in the bottom. Right, so you can, there's just, yeah, now you have more things that you can work with. So it's pretty nice. There's also this one, baseline, is pretty interesting. It's like if you have boxes that are different sizes, but you all want them to line up according to the text, which also is very common. We can do baseline as well, right? But by default, you see stretch, right? By default, align items is it's stretch. This is the default one. It just takes up your whole container. Okay. So notice again, all the stuff we're doing, we've been messing around with the container. Let's look at the box, individual boxes. There's a little more control you can have with like how do you want to, when you're resizing the browser, you can control the box, like individual boxes a little bit better. However, I'm not going to go into that. There's a lot. I'm not going to. So there's something called flex grow, flex shrink, and all this. Flex shrink and all that. I'm not going to go into that just because I do want to save time for Bootstrap. But if you want to look into that, if you want to do all kinds of responsive stuff, you could do that with flex grow, flex shrink, and stuff. Okay. But I want to show you one more thing. With Flexbox, there's something called order, which also blew my mind because this is just not possible with CSS. So let's say for whatever reason, I want my box 2. Okay, let's say I want my box 2, my pink one right here. For whatever reason, I need to reorder it. I need to change the order here. I don't want to put it here. I need to put it somewhere else. There's something called order now. Again, this is only valid with Flexbox. If I do order 10, for example, and I refresh, whoa, what happened? My box just flipped the order. This is, to me, like total witchcraft and total craziness because usually to change the order of my divs, I have to change it in the HTML, right? But now I can do it with, thanks to Flexbox, I can do it with CSS. By the way, this only works if I have Flexbox. Okay, if I didn't do Flexbox, none of this is gonna work. Okay, I have to be using Flexbox for this to work. Okay, but let's take a look at how order works. Though it's not as straightforward. It's not. So let's look at like, let's say like box 3, right? Like, how does that work? Like what? Doesn't quite make sense. Right, so this is what it does. By default, all my boxes are at order 0. Okay, by default, all of them are 0. So the moment I give any of them, like let's say I give box 1 order 1, all of a sudden it has more order than all the other guys, right? So it becomes, boop, it becomes the last one now. So if I said, oh, box 3, give it an order of like 2, then it's going to go after box 3 because that's the order. But if I gave box 2 an order of 2 and then, or like 20, and then box 3 had order 3, now box 2 is going to go after. Wow, isn't that amazing? You can just like flip-flop different orders. It's kind of great. Let me go and write this right. Default. Okay. All right, any questions about Flexbox? Again, there's a little more to Flexbox than this, but these are the basics. The more advanced part of Flexbox is like you could actually control, when you're doing different sizes, you could add a little more control in how your boxes shrink and grow. But it was when I was working on the lecture over the weekend, it just took up way too much time. So I'm gonna skip that. But I think this is like a good intro to Flexbox. But for your assignment 2, you still have to use floats if you're still working on it with your extension or something. You still have to have done floats. And then, now starting assignment 3, you can use Flexbox. Although with assignment 3, you actually aren't going to need to use Flexbox that much because you're going to use Bootstrap. Okay. All right, any questions, concerns? Everyone okay? All right, cool. So it's just, you know, a neat thing with Flexbox, you're probably going to see it when you're working on a website or something, so I thought it was. It really changed my life because I had to do so much with floats, but Flexbox just makes things so much easier. Again, this reference guide is so great. Like, everybody looks at this reference guide, like, no joke. Like, this is like anyone that's front-end developer that works with Flexbox has this on their, like, bookmarks. All right, let's close all my Flexbox stuff because we're oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot. Okay. So that's cool. Flexbox is cool, but let's actually use it in real life. Okay, my Coachella thing, for example. All right, we're going to show you how easy it is to do this 3-column thing that we did before using Flexbox. Let's use it in real life. Going back to Coachella.html, back here. All right, if you missed it, Coachella.html, it's in my lecture notes. Coachella.html. Yeah, there it is. Okay. All right, Coachella.html. Let me see if I can move this. All right, so if you recall, all these, they're all floating and all that stuff. They're all in this CSS file right now. Right? I want to show you how to do this same thing, but with Flexbox. So we looked at, so I actually created some new HTML for you, columns using Flexbox. The HTML part is almost exactly the same. I still have, you know, a div called like row Flexbox now, and inside of them, there's little divs called artists, and inside that artist, there's images and there's text. Okay, so it's following the exact same format. So there's a parent, there's a container called row Flexbox, okay, and in that are my artists, my 3 artists, my Ariana Grande, my Childish Gambino, my Blackpink, right? They're all 3 of them are inside this bigger div called row Flexbox. Okay, and then there's another div called artist Flexbox, but I don't really care about that one. The only one I care about is this one, row Flexbox. Okay. All right, so let's try that out. I'm going to go ahead and under this comment here is where I'm going to write that thing. So my row Flexbox, right? My row Flexbox, again, is my container. Okay, in my Flexbox example, I called it container, but honestly, the name doesn't matter, right? This is like the container that's containing my 3 artists. Okay. Let me write that down. Okay. So on this one, not on the artists themselves, but on this one, I'm going to do display flex. Right? Wow, save, and boom! Wow. Done, right? I'm done, right? Time to go home now, right? Like this is, I didn't have to do anything fancy. There it is. It's even responsive. This lecture, it wasn't responsive. This is even responsive. I mean, it's, yeah, I want to change, like 3 is too much, but whatever, it's responsive, right? Oh my gosh. Right? There you go. Pretty cool. The hard part's done, but now of course we do need to add, like if I want to add that yellow background, right? I gotta do some work here. So let's go ahead and do some work here as well. So each of my what do I call it? Artist Flexbox. Okay, each of them. I'm getting way ahead of myself here. Let me just. Oh yeah, let's let's give it a background color, right? We want to give it that yellow background color, just like this guy up here. If I write 7, what else? Background color. Oh, I wanted to do like text align center because I want the names to be in the center. There you go, right? There's some of that stuff going on. What else? So right now they're by default the Flexbox are just kind of growing really big, right? But I kind of don't want them to scale up like that. I want them to maintain a width, so I want to do width 300 pixels maybe. I'm just picking a number here. Okay, now it's 300 pixels. At a certain point, it's going to stop growing. Okay. All right. What else? Oh, I want that like border kind of thing. It's not really a border. It's just space. So I need some padding. So maybe I'll do like padding 15 pixels. So it's going to add padding around my whole thing here. There you go. Oh, nice. Right. There you go. Okay. All right. But I also want some gaps in between, right? So why don't I just do margin here as well. Okay. So if you recall, if you see two values on margin, the top means top and bottom. So 0 pixels is top margin, bottom 0, margin left and right is 10. Now I have oh, there you go. Okay, not quite. There you go. Yay. Right. Oh, but I want them to be centered. Right. I need them to be centered. Oh, what was the centered one again? Can you remember? Justify content. Boom. Oops, save. Boom. Everything's centered. Wow, amazing. That's it. Okay. I'll give you a minute to copy that down. If I wanted to make it look exactly like this, I just have to adjust my width a little bit, but you get the gist. Right? No floats, no more clearing. This makes a little bit more logical sense. We're not doing weird clear things and float things anymore. We're barely calculating width. We just, we don't even have to calculate like a lot of width here. We're just setting a width on each of them, and yeah. Cool. Any questions? Right. Hopefully it makes sense. Again, that guide is really useful if you want to look more into it. Flexbox can get pretty wonky though, so you do just watch out for it. Sometimes it's not as straightforward. So if you're struggling with that, let's come talk to me about it. Yeah, Flexbox is I think it's where CSS is headed anyway. So, okay. All right, questions, comments, concerns? No? Okay. Alrighty, I'm gonna go ahead and close my Flexbox. I'll leave my Coachella open. I'm gonna close I have too many tabs here. Oh, attendance. So if you didn't get attendance credit, if you walked in late, just talk to me after class. And then let's close all these. There's so many things open. Let's leave this one alone. All right, I'm gonna switch to slide mode just for a little bit, and we'll come back to our code. All right. Let's talk about Bootstrap now. Switching gears. Bootstrap is not like CSS, not like Flexbox, sorry. Bootstrap is not like Flexbox where you just type in Bootstrap or something and it works. Bootstrap is what we call a framework. It's a CSS framework. Another fancy word for it, or another term people call it, is a library. It's a library. It's more of an add-on to your CSS. Okay, it's not a part of your CSS. It's not native to CSS. It's an add-on to your CSS, and allows you to do all kinds of crazy stuff very easily. Again, people come up with libraries or frameworks or tools because they want to make your life easier. So what Bootstrap does is they've seen people develop websites for a while, and they're like, you know what? There's some common things that people do over and over again. Let's make it easier to create those. So that's what Bootstrap is doing. Okay. However, a big downside to this, as you're going to see real quick, is that a lot of websites end up looking similar. Like nowadays, I could totally tell, any website, I could tell if they're using Bootstrap or not. But we'll get to that in a sec. All right, so there's a lot of frameworks out there, actually. Bootstrap just happens to be the most, like by far the most popular one. But there's Zurb, there's also there's Foundation, created by Zurb, Semantic UI. Google created their own as well. It's called Materialize. So there's a lot of frameworks out there. Bootstrap just happens to be the most popular. That's why we're going to learn that one. And also very easy to use. Okay, so we'll get to the website. Bootstrap is very well documented. With any new kind of library or tool that somebody else creates, documentation is key. If you can get through their documentation, then you have to really understand what they're doing to be able to use a library or a framework like Bootstrap. Like I mentioned, it is very popular. It was originally created by Twitter, actually, and then they decided to open source it, and now anybody can contribute to Bootstrap. I don't know if Twitter still like is the owner. I'm not sure. I feel like they're not the owner anymore. I think they just kind of passed it off to the community, but I'm not sure. Anyway, so it was started by Twitter, and then there's a lot of websites that use Bootstrap. I don't think I have to convince you. All of you guys heard about it, so you know that it is a popular thing. All right, let's talk essentials though. Okay, it's very easy for people to just start Bootstrap without really understanding what's going on. So I don't want you guys to be one of those. I want you guys to be intelligent individuals who know how to assess and understand what these frameworks do before you just, assume things. So some essentials. All right, let's look at this. We haven't used this in class before, but there's a tag called button. It creates a button for you, just like this. You've seen these buttons before. And by default, buttons look like this. They're usually like roundish, they're white, they have some shadow. That's what a button does normally. Okay. However, with your CSS skills, now that you have, you might want to change the color of a button, right? You might want to make it blue. You might want to make it, I don't know, bigger or change the width and all this stuff. And you totally can. You can write CSS. However, what Bootstrap does is it does the heavy lifting for you. It says, you know what, we'll take care of the CSS for you. And you just have to use our CSS class. So what that's going to do is, by doing something like this, button class equals BTN, just adding these two classes, that plain old button became a nice blue large button, and it looks kind of nice. Okay. So this button became just by simply adding these two classes, and these come from Bootstrap, by the way. All right. By simply doing that, I have now a nice blue button. I didn't have to write color blue or color white background, color blue. I didn't have to write all this, write all the CSS. Bootstrap did it for me. I'm just using their CSS classes. Pretty neat, right? Even like something as plain old as like a list item like this, kind of what we did in class when we created a nav menu. We used had a UL, bunch of LI links. Right, right? List by default looks like this, but then when I wanted to convert this into a menu, remember I had to like write all this code, right? But now, thanks to Bootstrap, I'm just gonna add some classes again, no CSS almost, no CSS, and boom, now I have a nice, like a very simple looking nav, but at least I got a good starting nav, right? And Bootstrap does a little more than this. If you add more classes, you could even control the alignment. Notice how it's actually using justified content, by the way. Behind the scenes, Bootstrap is using Flexbox. That's why you're going to see a lot of like similar naming here. Justified content and notice that boom, I could actually change it to column. So these classes are defined by Bootstrap, and they're very, very, very powerful. Right? That's what Bootstrap does. Any questions so far? In a nutshell, Bootstrap gives you all these CSS classes that allow you to make things a lot quicker. What really put Bootstrap on the map though is not any of these fancy things. A lot of libraries do this, but what got it really on the map is the grid layout, right? When we're creating rows and columns, we just talked about Flexbox. Bootstrap came up with a very, very good idea, a way to make it easy for you to create rows and columns, but not just rows and columns, but even like for responsive stuff, like how about for mobile? Like for mobile, we want single column layout. For tablet, we want like 2 columns, 3 columns, right? So Bootstrap came out with like their own grid system, and we're gonna learn about it. It's very easy to pick up, but they're all about using this 12 column layout. All right, I'm just gonna flip through this. It's easier if I just show you, but essentially, you start with a container, and you add a row, and you add columns. It's very easy to add columns like this, and you can add as many rows as you'd like. So we're going to look at that as well. Bootstrap they're mobile first by nature, by default, and they use these breakpoints. This is all on their website, by the way, right? So we're going to be working with this as well, right? So, they use these. Right. So let's try it out. Again, it's, let's try it out. Getbootstrap.com, if you can go to that website. This is the Bootstrap's main website, and their documentation. If you click on documentation, they have really good documentation. I think they have one of the best around when it comes to libraries and stuff. Like once you click on documentation, if you look at components, for example, let's click on components. They have a lot of components that they kind of made for you. Alerts is one of them. Look at this one. You've seen these kind of alerts before, right? Like, oh, like you try again, or log in again, or forgot password, or like your password is wrong, or whatever, right? So to create something like this, it's as simple as, look how Bootstrap just gives you an example. They say, hey, if you do this, if you create div and add this class, you're gonna get one of these. Pretty cool. So let's try it. Open us up. We're gonna create yet one more file. This will be the last file, I promise. Go ahead and do new file. All right, let's go ahead and save this file. Let's call this one bootstrap.html. Okay, it's gonna be a brand new file. I don't think I showed you guys this before. So usually we gotta do the HTML tag and stuff. With Sublime, if you type HTML, if you click tab, boom, you get yay, saved you like 7 seconds maybe. Right, you don't have to type the whole thing anymore. Now you can just do that. Now that you guys are becoming pros at HTML, CSS, or at least I hope so, showing you some more and more keyboard shortcuts. Okay, this one I'm gonna call it like Bootstrap. Okay, one more time for those of you that missed it. If you type in Sublime if you have a file that's saved as HTML, if you type in HTML and press tab, it's gonna just fill out your skeleton for you. All right, so in here I'm just gonna do my generic like hello, and why don't I just create some buttons like I did in my example. Right, button. Hello, click me, and let me create another one. Button, delete. Yeah, I don't know. Just because I see delete buttons a lot or something, so something like that. Okay, save. Oh man. Okay, let me just try to stick everything here. Let's see everything, right? All right, let's go and open this in my browser, and then okay. So by default, you're gonna see. Let me zoom in a little bit here. We see hello, we see a click me button. It doesn't actually do anything right now, but you see click me, we see delete. Okay. If you're opening Safari, your buttons might look a little different because Safari has like different default styles for your button. Right. So if normally if I wanted to change my button around, I would have to write my own CSS, right? I have to button, like background color blue or something like, and then stuff like that. I need to write all my own styles to do this. However, now with Bootstrap, thanks to Bootstrap, we're going to cut that work in half. Okay, if I go to open up back to my Bootstrap documentation, I gotta first, before I even do anything, I need to load Bootstrap into my file. So let's look at their quick start real quick. If you click on documentation, it's gonna show you how to add your Bootstrap to your project. Okay, so let's just kind of follow their order here. It says to copy this thing into my thing, so I'm gonna go and do that in my head. There you go. And notice how this is a style sheet. It's an external style sheet, by the way, guys. And if I open this is a .css file. You guys know what .css file is. So if you open that, you're loading in all the CSS code in your HTML files. That's what you're doing. Holy cow! This is all of Bootstrap. And you can see, you actually do know this is CSS. You know this stuff. You know border, right? Right. You know all this. You've used this before. They're just using crazy mode, but right, this is all stuff you've done before. You're just loading. So you're loading their predefined CSS, and you're putting it in your CSS file in your HTML. Okay, so there's also JavaScript that it's actually optional. We're not going to use it for now because in our example we don't need it. But this is kind of a preview of what's to come. for your this nav here, you're gonna need that JavaScript bit. So anytime when you click something and something happens on a browser, that's JavaScript. So you're gonna need that for that. But in our example, we don't need this JS right now. Okay. What else? Oh, starter template. Hey, they actually give you a template. Maybe we should just start it here. They kind of give you like what you need. They give you some required stuff. Let's go and grab some of these required stuff. Oh, they want some kind of meta tag there. What else? They want this like this thing. Oh, you know this one. This is our responsive, the viewport tag to help us make things responsive. Maybe we've seen that before. There's my title. Maybe I should put my title on the top. Right, so I'm just kind of following their stuff. And if I were to add my JavaScript, it's optional. I would put it like right before the end of the body here. But for now, I don't really need to do that. So I'm just gonna stick with this. Okay, save, save, save. It looks like that's all I need. And let's see what happens if the moment I refresh this page. Take a quick look up here real quick. Right now everything's default to hello and Times New Roman, all that. The moment I hit refresh here, everything just changed because we loaded in Bootstrap. So as you can see right away, Bootstrap comes with some default stuff. My font is Arial, for example. There's some fonts that are being taken into place. My buttons even changed a little bit. Right? So the moment you add Bootstrap, you're literally taking in their code and you're putting it in your file, and now your entire file is kind of listening to that, which is a good and a bad thing. Bad thing is they've kind of taken over your stuff, right? So if you had certain things certain way, it might break it. So that's why people refer to, or originally Bootstrap was referred to a framework, because it's kind of like taking over your entire thing versus a library. We usually call something a library if you only use like pieces of it, but honestly Bootstrap just kind of takes over your whole site. So you never want to like make a site and then add Bootstrap later. That can cause disastrous things to happen. You want to plan with Bootstrap ahead of time. Ideally, of course, that's an ideal world, but we don't live in an ideal utopian world. So sometimes you do have to add Bootstrap later down the line. Yes.
You can like change the font. Right?
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. Yeah, of course, because Bootstrap is still CSS, and you know that CSS loves to cascade, and we can override things, so we can't do that. So we'll talk about that too. All right, let's talk about. Let's look at this. Before I do that, let's go and look at these buttons that I want to do. All right, so I have these buttons, and I want to change them into those nice looking buttons. So back to my documentation. If we click on components here, okay, again, there's a lot of here. There's alerts and all this stuff. But if you click on buttons, notice these. Oh, nice looking buttons. Like, oh, I want to use one of these buttons, like a blue one and a gray one and all that stuff. All right, and they even give you a code sample. If I wanted like the blue button right there, it literally says, oh, just add these classes. So I'm gonna do the same thing. In my button, I'm gonna say class, right? BTN space BTN primary. Notice there's a space here that I don't, maybe we haven't talked about this. You can have multiple classes. You can have more than one class in any HTML element. Okay. All right, the moment I do that and now I refresh, I get a nice blue button. Woohoo. Awesome. I don't have to write, again, I'm writing no CSS right now. All I did is I just loaded up Bootstrap and there it is. All right, what if I want that red button? Okay, the red button looks like danger. All right, so I'm gonna say class btn dash danger. Okay, and then if I go back to my Bootstrap, boom, oh, cool. All right, now here comes our next question. So this is great. Bootstrap has all these classes defined. By the way, there's a lot more other things. Like if you wanted to add your own breadcrumb, for example, right? You could use their classes there. You could even use like navbar. This is you guys are gonna have navbar. Hey, this looks like just like the one you have to create for your homework. Oh, what does that mean? Right? That means you have to read their documentation and understand how to use it. All right. there's a lot of different stuff here. There's like if you want to create a card, right? Like if you want to create like cards like this, there's some code there for you as well. Oh, they a little more advanced. You could even do carousels here. Like you've seen these before, sliders, right? Bootstrap comes with that as well. You can even do modals, right? There's a lot of like components. We call these components that allows us to, you know, even do stuff like this. Like Bootstrap makes it really easy for you to make this. All right, back to my button though. However, as you can see, there's not that many colors available. What if, you know, I'm creating a very unique website and I don't want to use the generic Bootstrap stuff. I want to, you know, I want a purple button or something, right? What the heck do I do? Well, let's take a look. I'm going to open up my inspect element just to kind of help you understand what's going on here. All right, let me see if I can. Okay, good. I'm going to click. You see my red button right now? My red button. Okay. And on this side, I can see my CSS coming up. Notice how it says btn-danger. And oh, there's my background color. The background color is being set. And it's being set by this file called button.scss, but it's, as you can see, it's coming from Bootstrap. So we know that Bootstrap is defining it like this. Okay. So, all right. Okay. I know that this is what's causing it to be red. That means, knowing my CSS skills, I can override this default, this red, right? So I could say, hey, background color, right? Background color. Instead of red, I want it to be purple or something. All right, what's gonna happen? Oh, now there's my code. Now it's overwriting their code. Ah, okay. So again, Bootstrap is CSS, so you can override their stuff, which again can be good at sometimes, but sometimes bad. Let me show you why this can be bad though. What if like later down the road though, I do want like another button, and I do want it to be red. Right? What happens now? It's purple though, right? Like all my BTN dangers became purple. That's not good. Right? So, you know, let's see. Let's right here. You can override Bootstrap classes. However, this might not be the best idea because it will affect your entire page. So maybe I think a better way to do this, instead of overriding theirs, my suggestion, create your own class. Okay, what I mean by that is I'm just going to follow them. Instead of BTN danger, I'm going to create my own, BTN purple or something. All right, I'm totally assuming Bootstrap doesn't already have this, but okay, I'm creating my own, and I'm going to call that one background color purple. All right, I'm going to go ahead and comment that one out. I'm going to leave that alone. Okay, and then in my button danger, all right, I could just remove it, or I could just, I don't know, it's up to you how you want it. You could either completely remove it, or you could just add another class here, button purple. Okay, and this button purple is going to win because this button purple has the same, it's like the same as BTN danger, but just BTN purple, but it comes after my Bootstrap, right? This is my Bootstrap, right? And BTN purple comes later. So what's going to happen? Okay, great. My cancel is still red, but my purple is going to override. There you go. My BTN purple here is going to override my BTN danger. So now I have something like that. Or I could have just removed BTN danger completely. I think that's fine too. But you know, up to you on how kind of you want to do that. But so when you want to override some Bootstrap stuff, I suggest, you know, create your own classes and try not to override theirs too much, or else, I mean, you can add for a little bit, but you know, like just be careful when you're overriding. All right, any questions so far? Yes.
If you're importing multiple style sheets, like multiple libraries, which one is
It totally depends on how they wrote their CSS, right? So it's always a level of precedence is how specific is the rule. So, BTN danger versus like BTN this one versus like, let's say you had something like this one is more specific because it's an ID. That's gonna win no matter what. So it's hard to say. It totally depends on how the CSS is structured.
Is the order that you like?
The order does matter to a certain point. It does matter to a certain point, like how we have our styles after this one. But this, like, it depends. If they have this, if let's say like one library had BTN purple and then Bootstrap had BTN purple or something. Okay. If it doesn't matter if who comes first. Like this one was always gonna win, for example. So my suggestion is don't use more than one framework. Just stick with one. You don't want things to conflict with each other, or it's gonna come nasty. If you're gonna use Bootstrap, just use Bootstrap. If you're gonna use Materialize, just use Materialize. Good question. Any other question? All right, what am I gonna Alright, any question? We're gonna do one more thing with Bootstrap. Okay, like I mentioned, so this is kind of the essence of Bootstrap. You can go, there's so much cool things you can do with Bootstrap. I really do love Bootstrap. Just be careful, like I said, just be careful with it especially when you're overwriting things. But here's like the big feature of Bootstrap. It's creating grids, it's creating rows and columns with Bootstrap. Okay, let's see that in action a little bit. Let me go ahead and I'm gonna add some break tags here, just so I can, just kind of move it down a little bit. Let me go and close this. All right, with Bootstrap, okay, if you click on back to the documentation, we click on this layout thing, and you see an overview. Yeah, there's a lot of documentation on here, but that grid system is really great at creating columns like these. And notice how, like, let me see if I can show you an example. It's very good at making responsive breakpoints. Like, oh, never mind, it's not going to show me here. But let's take a look. It's really easy to make columns, just like with Flexbox, but Bootstrap takes it to kind of a next level kind of thing. So let's take a look here. Okay. To create to create a grid with Bootstrap, you're going to start by creating a div as usual. All right, and you're going to create a container. Right, and this container, you've got to be careful with container because this is Bootstrap kind of is using this container. All right, so and let me add some, just so we can see this a little bit better. I'm going to add some background color to it. Oh, let me just like put hello or something for now. Okay, hello. So this is my container, and notice this container is interesting. This container is going to it's going to resize. So on mobile, it's just going to take up the whole width from edge to edge. But as it gets bigger, it's going to start taking up less space. Notice the spacing around it. Okay, and as it gets bigger, more spacing around it, and as it gets bigger and bigger, like more and more spacing around it, right? So that's container for you, versus container fluid. Container fluid is always going to be, the width is always going to be as, it's going to take up the whole screen. Okay, just to show you the difference. You could you could start with either one. I'm going to just stick with container for now because I actually like it sets like a certain width. All right, couple more things in here. In my container, if I want to add rows and columns, this is what I do. I'm going to create a row. One row, right? I want a row of stuff. Here we go. And in that one row, I'm going to just create a bunch of columns for now. Okay, and there's class of COL. I'm going to do column 1. Okay, let's do like 4 of them. Column 2, column 3, column 4. There's 4 columns. They all fit in nicely. Look at that. I could do multiple rows, by the way. So if I want to have 2 rows, I could do 2 rows. Maybe I only want to do like 3 or something. Wow, nice. Okay, let me let me just zoom out here a little bit because it's going a little crazy here. All right. And let me do also column, just so we can see these columns just a little bit better. Let's do, okay, there you go. Okay, so what do I have here? I have, in my container, I have 1 row. The first row, it's a div, has 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice how they're all class equals cool, And it just knows, like it just fits evenly, distributes itself to have, to do that. My second row has 3 columns, column 1 to 3, but they all have a class called col, and they do something like this. And then notice how as I get bigger and bigger, they resize, and even for responsiveness, they just resize. Kind of like how what Flexbox did, in a sense. Actually, it's because these are Flexboxes, by the way. But yeah. Very nice. Okay, I'll leave that up just for a second here. Okay, so by minimum, at the very minimum, if you want to create columns, you want to have class container, and then that contains all your rows and columns, and then you need a div class row for each of your row, and a column for each of your column. All right, coolio, awesome, right? So you could kind of imagine your Coachella. I don't think we're gonna be able to get to this, but you could do the same kind of idea there. Okay, however, again, like I said, Bootstrap takes this to the next level. So again, this is fine actually. However, at a certain point, let's say like for mobile, for example, like 4 columns in 1 row is way too much, right? It's like it's crowded here. For mobile layout, it's ideal to have all my columns be in 1 column layout, like just in a single column, right? So this is where I love Bootstrap. Instead of having to do like media queries and stuff, I can write all this in my class now. So again, Bootstrap is mobile first. We gotta think mobile first. Okay, so for my mobile, right? For my mobile, I can continue to add classes here. For my mobile, I want my column 1 to go all the way across. Okay, meaning I want to take up the whole space. So it's gonna actually do col-12. Remember that 12 thing I showed you in the slide real quick? 12 just means 12 means cover the entire thing here. Okay, let's just save that. That's all I'm going to do and just refresh. Whoa, now column 1 is spanning the whole area here. If I do column, by the way, if I do column 6, that means it's going to take up only half. Okay, versus column 12 means take up all 12 boxes. It just means take up the whole space. Okay, I could do the same thing with column 2. Right, column 3. And column 4. So technically I don't need COL anymore, but whatever, I'm just going to keep that there. Oh, pretty neat. However, as we get bigger though, I want my columns to change. I don't want them to always be like this. Okay, I want them to change a little bit. This is where more beauty Bootstrap comes in. This is what I'm going to do. These are defined by the documentation, so you might want to look at it. There's something called MD. There's actually small and MD. There's large, but I'm going to do MD. And I'm going to do MD 6. Okay, just for column 1 and 2 for now. What that means is for medium devices and larger tablets, so this is defined by CSS, by Bootstrap. You just want to, you're going to have to look at that real quick. But it's saying, okay, so for mobile, just keep it at 12, right? But at a tablet, boom, column 1 and 12 are now 50-50. Because it's 6. Because 6 plus 6 is 12. Okay. So we're not setting specific widths, we're setting more like proportionally kind of thing. All right, and we could continue this. If when we get to like a larger device, let's make them take up, take up like about a third each, 3 plus 3, 3. Right, so there's column 1, 2, right? And if it should when I get bigger, it becomes even less. Okay. So I could do this for the rest of my columns. I could just do the same thing here. Okay, so now it is changing depending on the grids here. Again, I wrote no CSS. I'm just writing classes, and now things are. I could even control layout and everything. So this is pretty neat. Yeah.
Can you change the CSS to add borders?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yep. I just added border just so I can see. I don't really need it, but I just wanted to see the like. All right, give you a second to digest here. Any questions so far? Alrighty, so I really want you to understand this really well, how this works really well. That's why we have a whole assignment on it. And there's no lab, by the way. This is that you only have one assignment due Sunday. So with your assignment, you're going to be practicing this quite a bit. Well, not a lot, but a few times to really try to help you understand it. Because if you get this down, you can really get really good. You're going to get really good at creating layouts and responsive layouts really fast, and it's really useful for you. Okay, so let me okay. I'm gonna stick around, by the way, after class. So if you have questions, please come talk to me. Like, please ask me questions. Please visit my office hours. It gets lonely. Please visit your TA's office hours, because honestly, this kind of stuff, the only way to get better at it is just keep thinking about it and just keep trying it. Nobody gets this like in one look and says, "Oh, I got it." Like it takes time. So the more you look at it, the more you try it out, the better you're gonna understand what's going on. All right. Okay, so let's talk about your assignment then. Sorry, one more thing. Sorry. I know this is why I should be following my notes. All right. One thing. However, even with columns, you might want to do customization, right? What if, like, for whatever reason, you want like the first row to be really tall, okay? For whatever reason, right? Like my div class row, like that, my first row, right? I could always give it more classes. You should never just do this, by the way. Like, don't do like height, like, don't do that. I know it looks good, but you're gonna mess up all your rows. Instead, maybe create your own row. Like maybe say like row like my first or something. I don't know. Create your own. Okay, create your own. Okay, and then maybe do like padding like top. Padding bottom. Stay away from defining heights because it just gets weird. And then now you got like some padding going on, right? But if you want like your specific, you could even add it to the columns itself if you want. Like let's say your column, you want it to be like your column tall or something. You can do like tall padding top like 10 pixels or something. You can do that, right? There's a lot of different ways you can kind of fiddle around with this. You could even inside these columns are giving you column structures, but if you need to add some stuff here, right? If you need to add like like an image here, you can still do that. You could add divs here if you want to do that. Make your own stuff here, right? Like call it like inner or something, and you want to mess with that there. Like you can go pretty crazy. You can do as much as you need in here, like this. Okay, you can always add to the existing stuff. So you might want to kind of play around with that. Rule of thumb, like again, like you don't like stay away from changing width or padding left, right. On columns, okay? Because columns are they're setting widths for you. So you don't want to mess with their width, or else your responsive stuff is gonna break a bit. So you want to try to stay with, like, don't try to change anything that changes your widths, is what I'm trying to say here. If you want to change height, that's fine, but you really don't want to mess with width around too much. Okay. Word of caution. All right. Okay, so let's look at your assignment one more time. Okay, we're gonna end with this. With your assignment, I'm giving you some major hints here. Navbar, like I told you, Navbar, Bootstrap comes with a default Navbar component. Read it, understand it, and then it will be very easy for you to add something like this. You're gonna probably write almost no CSS to actually make this thing. You're gonna just follow Bootstrap to the teeth. Okay. If you use Bootstrap well, you're gonna write very, very little CSS. All right. Okay. Background picture, you've done that before, so as usual, and then pick like a title or something and come up with some slogan. All right, that's kind of stuff you already know how to do. All right, let's look at this part here. Oh, okay. And as I showed you, it changes and it all that stuff, right? This area looks like a great place to do this grid system thing. All right, isn't it? This is like a container. This is one row right here, 2 columns. There's another row here, 2 columns. Oh, that looks just like, yeah, you want to do grid layout here, okay? Use a grid layout here. It'll save you a lot of headache, I promise, okay? So with that grid layout, you can, easily do this, and then when it gets bigger, you can make it go next to each other, right? So on and so forth. So you don't have to, you're not writing any of your own widths here. You might want to add some like padding or something if you want some space, but that's kind of it here. Even with your team, let's look at this. Team. Oh, there's 3 items in 1 row. Oh, that looks like a perfect place to use my grid layout or grid system. This is 1 row, 3 columns. Oh, okay. Hopefully I'm giving you enough hints here. So again, if you're using Bootstrap correctly, this entire assignment you could write like very little CSS. Like I think I wrote like very little CSS in this. Let me see if I can bring it up real quick. Okay, it looks like a lot of CSS, but this is all the CSS I wrote. Everything else comes from Bootstrap. Okay, so if you're doing it right, you shouldn't need to do too much CSS. If you find yourself writing a lot of CSS, maybe take a step back and say, hey, maybe I could use this using Bootstrap step. All right. Again, 2 pages. You don't need to make a 3rd page. This is just for show. Yeah. So, and before you just kind of dive in, again, maybe like a really good way to create layouts like this is just kind of draw it out first. Maybe again, like oh, I need a nav here. Simply drawing it out will help you just kind of think before you dive into code. Alright. Okay, again, I'll stick around here for a while. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Other than that, have a great weekend, everyone, or a great week. What am I saying? This is due Sunday. There's no lab due. See you guys next week.